Next is attunement, culture of recognition. Ensure everyone is greeted daily to be seen and heard as a human being. Publicly recognize those who do good work. Research shows organizations with high recognition cultures perform better and have less turnover than those who do not. I don't need to tell you that if you have to replace an employee, it takes someone to orient them. And so it's going to take another person out of the workforce just to get them oriented. So turnover is very costly. People recognized for their work are more likely to tolerate the demands of their work and feel overwhelmed. Team meetings and unexpected gestures of appreciation are ideal for highlighting strengths, competencies, creative ideas, and contributions. Be thoughtful and sincere. These moments are to be protected. Research shows that when peers show gratitude to a peer, feelings of support and satisfaction are significantly elevated. Inspire and instill. Gradually lead your teams to hold a sense of purpose for the work they are doing. People do not live by paychecks alone. Inspiration is about breathing life into others. When employees connect what they do with the real world, the demands and expectations of their work, which once seemed distressful and fatiguing, now gain meaning. Make purpose and meaning your first agenda item. If people know that their purpose and meaning in their life matches what they're doing at work, you have really scored a great victory. Everyone needs to see how their work lives. Stop.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to start with everyone.
Okay.
Oops, sorry. Everyone needs to see how their work lives on after they're gone. Support through transition. Change and transition are not the same. Change is situational and focused on the outcome. It is collective event. Transition is volitional and focused on the journey. It is personal experience. Supporting everyone through their own challenges of transition is key to stabilizing organizational change. The bigger the change, the more support is called for to work through the transition. So with attunement, we're talking about culture of recognition, inspire and instill, and support through transition. Leadership's call to action. Greet every member of your team every day. Make purpose and meaning your first agenda item. Get to know your team members' needs and how to best support each of them through transition as the organization experiences change. Seek to build unity and harmony within the team, which will inspire everyone for mutual self-help. The employee's call to action. Continue to build relationships of trust and transparency by acknowledging the good work your peers are doing. Connect daily with a key source of inspiration and then share it with others. Be a receiver and a giver. In times of transition, look for ways to support one another, recognizing that it is times of big change or crisis transition will be quite difficult for some. Look to help everyone work through their issues while staying together and moving in the same direction. Resiliency is not bouncing back, as if people are like a ball that can be thrown against a wall and come back as if nothing has happened. Resiliency is not a switch to be flipped, as if a person's dark places go away because someone has turned on the light. Resiliency is not a destination, as if a person only needs to achieve a particular plateau and then declare, "I have arrived." Resiliency is not about recapturing what or who was lost. Resiliency should not be presumed as if every person has the same capacities and that their recovery is the same as others. 5 focal points that define resiliency are: resilience is about growing. It is a process, but it is not merely a step-by-step linear approach to living. Resiliency requires burn-in. Resiliency is about taking aim. People must be able to identify their target and then take aim on that target. This will take lots of practice for some folks. There's a saying in golf I really love, which is, if you don't have a target, you'll miss it every time. Resiliency is about gleaning for wisdom. It is about seeking out the good and the beneficial among difficult experiences and exposures. This requires relaxing the grip on the belief that no good can come from bad. Resiliency is about rewriting the story that happened. This is a skill of filtering, sometimes associated with the brain function of pruning. It is the practice of sifting non-essentials from the essentials. In addition to calling it rewriting, I prefer to say reframing the story. Resiliency is about learning to trust again. In order to live a fulfilling life and do meaningful work, one must learn to trust. Resiliency renews meaning and purpose to living. Meaning and purpose are not the same thing, but there is not one without the other. Assigned meanings becomes the individual's belief or truth. As a person's narrative evolves through intentional living, then their life's meaning defines their purpose. Resiliency restores the individual's identity. There is a direct correlation between a person's work and their sense of self-worth. Resiliency starts forward movement. One of the consequences of trauma and toxic stress is loss of movement, a slowing of their gait, a drop of their productivity, loss of aspirations, feelings of paralysis emotionally, psychologically, occupationally, relationally, and sometimes physically. They just feel stuck. Resiliency recalibrates one's direction. Imagine you're on a wilderness adventure and you get separated from your party. A map can tell you where you are, but a compass will point you in the direction that you need to go. Resiliency is a person's personal compass. The principle of attachment. No one can recover and build towards resiliency alone. You have to have trust-based relationships, courage and willingness to connect, and attachments that are secure, authentic, compassionate, stable, holding to integrity, and able to manage conflicts. The principle of autonomy. No one can recover and build resiliency without learning how to show up for their own rescue. You must build self-confidence and trust in yourself. Be free from threat and free to be who I want to be. Self-accepting who I am now and who I am becoming. So we've discussed the 5 focal points that define resiliency, 4 benefits of a resilient life, and 2 essentials for achieving the resilient life. Now we're going to talk about resilience in a practical sense, and this is a story of trees and wind at the biosphere near Tucson. And inside the biosphere too, the trees grow much faster than they do in the wild because the inner structure could not keep up with the outer structure growth. The trees never completely matured. The trees, unable to stand under their own weight, would topple over. It turns out that wind plays a major role in the maturation of trees. Wind makes the trees resilient. Much like the various wind we have in our lives makes us resilient as we learn to stand up to the wind. Leadership's call to action. Organizational leaders are called upon to become trauma-informed leaders. To become an ascending leader, that is, to bring along your team as you ascend. Members of your organization cannot build towards resiliency alone and isolated. What will you do to foster trust-based relationships? How will your workplace environment encourage its people to connect with one another? How will you create a culture that is secure, authentic, compassionate, stable, holding to integrity, and able to manage conflict? The employee's call to action. Every person, every employee is responsible for learning how to show up for their own rescue. What are the 1 to 2 things you need to build your self-confidence and begin trusting in yourself? When you think about the freedom to be who I want to be, what is the first thing you imagine doing to move you in that direction? You are invited to repeat these 2 sentences until your self-confidence is restored. I accept who I am. I accept who I am becoming. Driving out stress and overcoming compassion fatigue is all about building relationships of trust and transparency. If people perceive their workplace as a threat, then the trust needed for teams to collaborate and innovate effectively cannot be built. A study of 2.5 million teams found when managers communicate daily with their direct reports, employees are 3 times more likely to be engaged with their work and their team. Effective, consistent communication builds trust. 60% of employees claim they are less than well informed about their organization's goal and direction. The respect that comes from being informed and included builds trust. But let me add one more thing. In order for this to occur, you also have to have safety that leads to trust and transparency. In the workplace, employee engagement is paramount. It is about connecting emotionally with the workplace. It is not enough for employees to buy into an organization's vision, mission, and goals. Employees need to connect their meaning and purpose with the organization. Be intentional to explore with each member of your team their life's purpose and how they see it connecting with the work of the organization. As an employee engagement builds, you can expect people's stress to drop, less absent from work, increased job satisfaction, participation in problem solving, increased employee retention, and a direct positive impact on the organization's outcomes. Keep the big picture. Keep it big. Help each person to see how their work is contributing to the organization's big vision and goals. Show them. Give opportunity to lend support for employees to explore and be creative on how they and their co-workers will implement programs and services to accomplish the big vision and goal. Trust them. Leaders increase the shareables and explain why the unshareable is unshareable. This is about declassifying as much information as possible. Be transparent. Employees step into the big picture and make it your story. Ask questions, offer your ideas, share your concerns. Keep in mind, when people are confused about how they and their work connects to the organization, it drives stress into distress, especially in times of uncertainty, certainly like now during COVID-19. Regarding how work is done and goals are achieved, give employees the opportunity for self-leadership and self-determination. Move away from the idea of control and do not be afraid to share the weights of responsibility. Remember how to do burn-in. Research shows employees are 43% less likely to experience high levels of burnout when they have a choice in deciding what tasks to do, when to do them, and how much time to spend on each task. Implement the shadow approach, another way to do burn-in. Number 1, watch me do it. Number 2, we do it together. And number 3, I will watch you do it better. So this is a little different than what we've learned in medicine, which is see one, do one, teach one. So this involves burn-in so that you get to practice it. So connect with the workplace, be transparent, allow for autonomy. The leadership's call to action. Make a plan to visit each member of your team to discuss this question. What are we not talking about that we should be talking about? Number 2, explore how this quote from Ari Weinswig might be relevant to your organization. Success does not mean we have no problems. It means we have better problems. Note, as you listen to your team raising questions, there may be some questions for which there are no answers or apparent solutions. Do not be afraid. In those cases, use those unanswered questions to find better questions. Remember, as long as we have unanswered questions, the conversation continues, and so does the trust building. The employee's call to action. What is the one thing you are willing to commit to do to unblock communication in your work area? What is one risk you are willing to take to break through the wall that is preventing you from trusting the people with whom you work? Write down 1 to 2 action steps you will take to relax your grip on what you believe and what you already know. What is the one step you need to take today to aim yourself higher? So now we've covered safety, movement, attunement, resiliency, and trust. Objectives that we've covered. Number 1, what is stress and how does it impact one's ability to effectively communicate and maintain meaningful relationships? Stress is a demand or expectation. Refer to the Yerkes-Dodson curve of stress and performance. Objectives. Number 2, employees have the tools necessary open, honest relationships, and it is okay to make mistakes and learn from them. Objective number 3, when stress becomes distress, where is it most likely to manifest in the workplace? In relationships. Objective number 4, what is compassion fatigue? What are the essentials for overcoming it, and how can we begin to move forward? Compassion fatigue involves physical, psychological, emotional, spiritual, and occupational areas. We talked about toxic stress being your adverse childhood experiences, vicarious trauma, something you witness that leads to compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue is when you have nothing left to give. Your gas gauge is on the red light. Objective number 5. What are the realities of change and transition, and how is the workplace impacted by those realities? Change is an event, it's situational. Transition is an experience, it's volitional. So an example might be your first anatomy test in medical school, but the transition would be your 4 years of medical school and graduation. Objective number 6, what can we do today to begin driving out stress and overcoming compassion fatigue? Well, it's the SMART acronym of safety, movement, attunement, resiliency, and trust. If this training had been about mountain biking or backpacking across country, then I would have taught you about what to do when you get tired. Getting tired is a natural occurrence when a person does mountain biking or backpacking. As you return to your work and your lives, here's something for you to think about. If you want to learn how to keep doing what you want to do and keep living the life you want to live, then you will need to learn to deal with the things that keep showing up, such as fear, stress, compassion fatigue. Just like if you're going to mountain bike or backpack, you will have to figure out what to do when you get tired. Likewise, you will need to figure out where to put the stress when it shows up. As you go, may you be resilient in the face of adversity, and may your days be long and prosperous.